Welcome back to Aaron and Ellie on Kirby Drive. Today, it's just going to be Aaron. I'm here doing a solo pod. Ellie is back at the hospital doing another shift, so we're going to talk about what we came here to talk about. First of all, just want to say, this week we did lose a legend in the NBA. Shout out to Jerry West, the man who the logo itself is actually modeled after. He passed away sometime earlier this week. He was 86. He was drafted second overall in the 1960 NBA draft. He won Finals MVP as a player. He was the first to ever win. I think he's the only to ever win Finals MVP while being on the losing team. That's how good he was in the 1969 NBA Finals. He also won an NBA championship in 1972. He was a 14-time All-Star, a 10-time first-team All-NBA selection, 4-time first-team All-Defense NBA selection. He was a scoring champ in 1970, and he led the league in assists in 1972. As a player, unbelievable career, Hall of Fame on its own. Not only did he do that, but he also went on to be a Hall of Fame level executive. He won 8 NBA championships as an executive. He won Executive of the Year twice. And probably the best week you can have as a professional. He signed Shaquille O'Neal in free agency and then traded for Kobe Bryant like 7 days apart. So, hey, not a bad week of work. I don't know if I've ever been that productive in my life before, so I don't know. Man, yeah, he just did so much for the game. Very grateful for the contribution that he had for the sport. The NBA genuinely wouldn't be what it is now without everything that Jerry West did. My favorite quote from him, yeah, you hear people talk a lot about how, like, dude, does this guy have that dog in him or not? Does this guy have that dog in him? Oh, he's got that dog in him. Jerry West says, the word dog comes up a lot. Well, I was a wolf, okay? I used to eat dogs. That's pretty hard. I think that that's a great quote. And I think that perfectly like exemplifies what he was about. So, rest in peace, Jerry West. You will be missed. Again, thank you for all the contributions you made to the association while you were still with us. Speaking of the NBA, I really thought that this series would have a little bit more legs than it ended up having. The NBA Finals, currently, as they stand, the Celtics lead 3-0 against the Dallas Mavericks. Oh, man. It's over. I don't know any other way to say it. They're finished. They're cooked. I reached out to the only person I know who is from the Northeast. They had this to say. They said, Kyrie's a bum, Luka's a crybaby, season 4. It's pretty succinct. I don't know if you can put it any simpler than that. It has just not been the Mavericks series whatsoever. I mean, game 2, it was already not looking great. I think teams that lead 2-0 are 31-5 all time in NBA Finals history. But nobody in the history of the NBA playoffs has come back from down 3-0 before. So it's over. Historically, it is over. Only one team has come back from down 3-1, and that was LeBron in 2016. So unless you have the greatest player to ever play the game on your team, I don't think it's going to happen. I don't know if the Mavericks will manage to pull another one out. I would imagine they probably will. I don't think that Luka will go down without a fight, but I don't think that it's going to matter for much. I don't know. I did see one guy in the comment section being like, yeah, no, this is definitely going to go to 5 because they just want to have another game. Like, they just want the income from another game. I don't know, man. I think that it's just going to happen the way it happens. And I think if that does happen, you'll say you called it. And if it doesn't, you just won't think about it. And then you'll say that the next time there's a series that's going to go to, like, that's about to be over, but it happens to get extended. So, I don't know. Not really relevant. Just something... Just another Instagram comment that I got mad at this week. Yeah, I don't know what's going on with the Mavericks. Genuinely, they seem like they were a team that was unbeatable in the West. Like, I mean, they took some really tough teams down to the wire. But, I mean, this is like the Western Conference we're talking about. This is the best of the best. They beat 2 teams that were supposed to be the teams in the finals. And when they got there, they ran into the buzzsaw that is the Boston Celtics. I mean, it has just been a nightmare for them. I mean, Jason Tatum hasn't even been playing that well. The Boston Celtics have been getting maybe 30% games out of Jason Tatum, their best player. Well, not if you ask Jason Kidd, but we'll get to that in a second. And still, they're leading 3-0 on their way to their 18th NBA championship. So, I don't know. I don't know where this leaves the Mavericks, because I don't want to say that I don't think that they deserve to be here, because they fought for their spot in the playoffs, and they fought really hard through all of the previous rounds to make it to where they are now. But I don't think they're the second best team in the NBA, right? I don't think they're the best team in the West that should be facing off against the Celtics. I think they got really hot, made a crazy run in the playoffs, so that's a lot of fun, I'm sure, if you're a Mavericks fan. Good for you. I know it's better than what the Rockets are doing right now. I would much prefer, losing in the finals in 4 games. Well, I don't know, because I haven't even really been paying attention, so it doesn't hurt. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it's worse to get all the way there and then lose in 4 games. I don't know. Let me know in the comments what you think about that. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know what's going on. Let me know if you're a Mavericks fan. What's going through your head? Because I don't think that this team is there was a lot of talk about how this team got put together, about how basically the Mavericks purposely lost a game at the end of last season, took their starters out and tanked to miss the play-in tournament so that they could keep the rights to their first-round draft pick and then use that to acquire a bunch of their key players now. And it seemed like a real genius move that people were going to have to take a long, hard look at whenever they beat the Timberwolves. But now, I mean, it kind of all kind of comes crashing right down to where you're well, look, outside of Luka, what's really there? Derek Lively has played really well in this playoffs, and I think that he's a good piece to build around. And I think Daniel Gafford and who else? PJ Washington have had their moments. But I mean, I think the same problem you have now is the same problem you had at the beginning of the year. Is you look at that roster and you say, okay, well, Luka Doncic, obviously one of the top 5 players in the NBA, probably top 3, and Kyrie Irving, probably one of the most skilled players that's out there. Although he's kind of in Aaron Rodgers territory, where okay, is he the most skilled because it's just a cool thing to say, or is it what does that mean? Because he's not the best player ever. He's not really ever been one of the best. I don't think there's been a year where he's been top 3, So what is he then? I don't know. He was nothing the first 2 games of the series. I think he scored 35 game 3, so finally showed up. But I think at the end of the day, you're still looking at that roster in Dallas and you're saying, okay, we have Luka and then a bunch of guys who hopefully can do enough to help Luka win a championship. And this year it just wasn't enough. I don't know what route they need to take to get to that next step where they have guys who can contribute meaningfully for long stretches of time. But yeah, I don't know. I think that they played really well on defense this year, and I think that that's great. I think that it was very easy to get carried away with this team that made the NBA Finals. And who knows, they could win the NBA Finals, come back and be the first team ever to do it, go down in history, and then this whole thing is just horrible. This is audio poison for this podcast. But I don't know. I just don't think that they're there's nobody there who you would take over anybody on the Celtics, right? I think that, point guard Drew Holiday, Derek White, take your pick. I don't know. Any of the Celtics guards, I would take them over everybody but Luka on that team, essentially. I don't know. Maybe I would take Kyrie over... I don't know, because Drew Holiday had an excellent game too, I believe. So I don't know. I just certainly you're gonna keep Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum as your guard forward combo there. So Derrick Jones Jr. is not gonna be in the equation at all. Kristaps Porzingis, when he's healthy, which maybe he is, maybe he's not. I don't know. Very strange. We'll talk about that in a second. But yeah, I just top to bottom of that roster, basically, I would just take all the players that started for the Celtics over anybody but Luka on the Mavericks team. And that's just the way it is. So I think that, like, if you're a Mavericks fan, I think you should cherish this run because it's special. It doesn't happen all the time. But, it was going to take another effort like the 2011 Mavericks team with Dirk Nowitzki to just go on an absolutely magical run and beat basically what is like equivalent to LeBron's 2011 Heat and just shock the world, basically. That's what it was going to take this year. Who knows? Might still happen, but I don't think so. There's one other quote that I think that it's so interesting how these narratives go in the media. I guess that's the whole point, right? It's like sports media is garbage, and just like every other like form of like reporting is just kind of like people change on a dime what the perception is going to be in the media. I remember seeing stuff all over the place. Like, actually, like, this is like Luka's best defensive year ever. Like, their whole team, like, defensively is so solid. They're locking down all these other teams. They are so good at what they do on defense that they are going to be a real problem for the Celtics because they have like one of the best offenses in the league, but they haven't met anyone like the Dallas Mavericks yet. And then, the Mavericks go down 3-0. Now ESPN's posting that Luka Doncic, over the last 10 years, the 3 worst blow-by percentages allowed on drives in a postseason series have all come this year. And they're all by Luka Doncic. So now we're rewriting history, saying actually the defense that was being played by Luka was actually not that good. It's actually historically terrible, which may have always been the case. We just were ignoring it because they were winning. But yeah, 67.7% of the time he's getting blown by on drives to the basket in this final series. 2/3 of the time he's letting his man past him. Now, these are other comments I'm reading on here. It's people that are probably Celtics fans saying, actually no, or probably Mavericks fans saying, actually no, this is the Mavericks game plan. It's to funnel their perimeter guys. So the perimeter guys are just funneling the other team into their shot blockers who are going to defend the rim. That may be the case. I don't know. Like, I don't think that there's any... I think that may be like a general philosophy, right? To say, like, okay, like, look, like, don't like over pursue on drives. Like, go over screens. Don't go under to try and stop a drive. Like, make sure that your perimeter defense is your first priority, stopping the 3. And then if they do end up getting past you, like, we have bigs inside to defend. So it's not the end of the world. We're going to focus on stopping them from shooting the 3. But, like, obviously there's no coach in the NBA who's going to be like, okay, so here's what we're going to do. 2 out of every 3 times they bring the ball down the court, Luka, you're going to turn and you're going to just let them run past you. That's the game plan. And actually we like it that way. That's what we want to do. Nobody, like, Jason Kidd's not saying that. So, like, part of this is that's just the way they play defense, but the other half is I just don't think that like Luka is in like the best condition right now. I know he's pretty banged up, but 2, I just don't think that he has like the will to defend like that, He is very I don't know, to me he just seems like someone who is very driven by his offensive output, I'll say. That's a diplomatic way, I'll say that. Just in case he wants to come on the podcast at any point. But I don't know. He's just very, like, when things are going well for him on offense, he's in a good mood. When things go poorly, he spends half the time yelling at the refs, getting in their face, not getting back on defense because he's still yelling at the refs, not really, like, getting his hips down and stopping someone from blowing by him on defense because either he's conserving energy to use on the offensive end of the floor or he's just can't be bothered to play defense whenever things aren't going well for him on the other end of the court. So, I don't know. Like most things, I feel like the truth lies somewhere in the middle. Like, there's a lot of people who are saying, like, no, actually, this is their whole game plan. And there's cherry-picked stats like ESPN likes to put out where they say, oh, actually, he's the worst perimeter defender we've ever seen. Probably somewhere in the middle, but I think that, his nagging injuries that he's been dealing with this playoffs probably contribute to that a little bit. So, I don't know. Not ready to give him a pass completely because if you want to be talked about as one of the top 3 players in the NBA, in the world, you should probably win a game here. He's not been playing poorly. but you should probably win a game. Uh, so we'll see if they can do that this weekend. But so far, haven't been able to manage it. I mentioned earlier that Kristaps Porzingis, who, if you remember, had just come back in game 1 of this series. He was out for 38 days after suffering an injury in the first round of these playoffs. He came back, played 2 games, was lighting it up, running the floor, getting block shots, hitting threes, doing everything they wanted from him and more that they were missing in the in-between of the playoffs. And then I think in the fourth quarter of game 4 or something, also, I don't know what's going on. I'm on the CBS website. I can't scroll past this accurate ad, so awesome. But like, oh my gosh, what's going on? But essentially, he suffered some sort of injury that I don't really understand. I saved what I thought was an article about it, but it seems to be just like a video. So let me find something real quick. I don't know what he did. He dislocated something that I think they were saying like there had only been like 32 reported cases in English or something like that. I don't know. It was pretty crazy. But I guess he's going to play. Oh no, that's game 1. Here we go. Rare injury. So, in the third quarter, I don't know what he did, but this is the official injury title. It's a torn medial retinaculum, allowing dislocation of the posterior tibialis tendon in his left leg. I don't know what any of that means. I wish Ellie was here so we could have some type of medical professional, but I don't think she would really know what that means either, because I don't know. I don't know if cancer is forming in that either. So this article says, just how rare is the Celtics big man's injury? According to a 2006 study published in the Iowa Orthopedic Journal, there had been only 32 reported cases of dislocation of the posterior tibial tendon in English literature to that point. So this is something that has really never happened before. I don't really know what the outlook looks like. I guess, do I want to read this Iowa Orthopedic Journal? I don't know. This is just kind of I don't really have time for this. It says that they have both returned to their pre-injury level of activity without any recurrence of dislocation. So, just from reading the abstract, I've gathered that there's 2 patients. They've both suffered traumatic dislocation of this tibial tendon. And then after surgical stabilization, after repairing the torn retinaculum, they have both returned to their pre-injury level of activity without any recurrence of dislocation. So, it seems like he will be okay eventually. It says surgical stabilization has been successful and most patients return to full function. So, yeah, at least in terms of a human being, he will be able to be back to normal again, right? I don't know. It's only happened 32 times prior to 2006. I don't know how many of those people have been 7-foot tall Latvian guys who are playing at the highest level of competitive basketball. So who knows if full function means, windmill dunking on somebody in the NBA Finals or not. Although he missed game 3, but he's still questionable for game 4. So they haven't even ruled him out of this series. So it's hard to tell what's going on. Obviously, I'm sure it's hard for them as well. But yeah, that was just a crazy little footnote turned into a footnote on this series, right? Obviously, if Dallas had won the last game that he missed, it would have been a bigger issue. It would have been one of the main storylines going into game 4. But now it's kind of just if he can get back, I don't know, he can be in the uniform for the trophy presentation at this point. Who can say? I think it's just going to end up being a little footnote in NBA Finals history. But yeah, it looks like the NBA Finals have been decided. The Boston Celtics, in all likelihood, will be your 2024 NBA champions. That is painful, but it's better than the Mavericks getting a title. So, um, yeah, I don't know what's going on this year. The finals are 3-0 in favor of the Celtics, and then the NHL Stanley Cup playoffs, their finals, are 3-0 in favor of the Florida Panthers. So we might be like done with those seasons like a full like 2 weeks before we normally would be, which would be interesting. I mean, the WNBA is still going on, so we'll always have that, and we can talk about that right now. Uh, just tonight, actually. So I'm recording this 3 a.m. on June the 14th, Friday, but last night, technically, on Thursday, one of like the craziest games that I've seen this year just happened. The Aces and the Mercury were playing. I think it was 103-99 Aces over the Mercury. Man, it was back and forth, lights out. Like, so many players had excellent games. Jackie Young, 34 points, 7 of 13 from 3. She scored 21 points in the second quarter. Asia Wilson, 32 points, 15 rebounds. Brittany Griner, 25 points, 9 rebounds. Diana Taurasi, 22 points on 8 of 14 shooting. So 4 of the biggest names in the sport going at it at a high level, putting on a show. If you haven't seen it, go back and watch it. It was incredible. And I think that is like something that we should be focusing on because it is just so, I don't know. These women are so talented, and this is such like a, again, like I said last week, you want to watch the NBA to watch the WNBA? Watch the Aces. That's all I have to say to you. Now, of course, the other news from this week that's been hanging over women's basketball, the Olympic teams got announced some point between when we recorded last and now, and Caitlin Clark did not make the cut. People are very upset about that, obviously, and I don't want to spend too much time on it, but I do want to run down the roster just because I don't know, like obviously like people who are very upset about this don't really watch women's basketball. No shade if you did want to see her on the team. You know, I'm not talking about if you have a genuine reason why you think she should be on the team over some of these other women, that's fine. If you're one of the people who is not going to watch the Olympics anyway and is saying like, oh, well, yeah, you blew it. Caitlin Clark's literally the only good thing about women's basketball and you didn't even put her on, so I'm not watching. And it's like, dude, I don't know that you would have even thought to like, I'm sure it would have been August and you would have been like, oh yeah, I was supposed to watch Caitlin Clark play in the Olympics. I guess I just actually don't care, you know? It's like, dude, why? These are clearly people who aren't going to watch the sport either way, but then they're like, you know what? This sucks now. Now I'm really not going to watch it because Caitlin Clark's not going. It's like, man, get over it. But I think that today, like especially this game that we just talked about, the Phoenix Mercury and Las Vegas Aces, that game really exemplifies that there are levels to this. There are levels to this, and Caitlin Clark is a good player, and I really hope she does well because it doesn't do me any good for her to be bad, right? Like I used to be somebody who would see someone get popular and be like, oh, I hope they're a bust. I hope they're terrible. Don't understand it because, like, what's your worst case scenario? They become like the greatest player of all time, and you have to be somebody who hates LeBron and like is constantly getting upset every time he does something good, which again is going to be every night until he retires. Is that who you want to be for Caitlin Clark? I don't think so, because you could be in that same situation. But also, like, your best case scenario is someone gets to the league and flames out and their dream is like crumbling in front of their eyes and you say, I was right. Let's go. She is actually terrible. You know, it's a lose-lose situation. I don't even remember what I was talking about. This is like Ellie's not here to keep me on track, so I just kind of am going on and on. Yes, there's levels to this. I mean, like Asia Wilson, 32 points, 15 rebounds. I think she's got 8 straight games of 25 plus points. That's the most in WNBA history. Ridiculous, the run that she's on. She's probably going to win her third MVP. She is on track to be the GOAT of women's basketball at this point, you know? She is playing at another level. She's just playing a different game than some of these women. Jackie Young, also another former first overall pick for the Aces. 34 points, 7 of 13 from 3. Both of them are on the Olympic team. Brittany Griner, selected to the Olympic team. There's a lot of controversy around her being selected, of course, because people are terrible and they think it's entirely her fault that she was detained by an enemy of our state. And it wasn't motivated by what type of political division they could sow by keeping her hostage in a Russian prison. It was entirely on her. So, yeah, she probably doesn't deserve to be on the Olympic team if that's the case. But no, I mean, like, she played a great game, 25 points, 9 rebounds. I think she proves that she belongs on the Olympic team. Right? I don't know many other women who are blessed with the size that she has, you know. Diana Taurasi, some people thought, hey, maybe she's over the hill. Maybe she's too old to play on the Olympic team. I mean, she put up 22 points on 8 of 14 shooting. She's not slowing down. Also, we need people who have been there before, who have done it before. It can't just be the whole rookie class just go and try and win America the Olympics. Like, what sense does that make? Just because these are the first people that you've learned the names of doesn't mean that these other women haven't, like, I think Asia Wilson has won like 58 games for Team USA and lost 2. So these women, clearly they have it under control, okay? Like, right there, those 4, that could be a full starting lineup almost basically right there. So I don't know where Caitlin Clark fits in above those players. Now, Kalia Copper is also on the women's Olympic team. She's averaging 24 a game. She's shooting 39% from 3. Nafisa Collier, shooting, she's a forward, but she's also averaging 20 points and 10 rebounds. And then, you know, you have people like Sabrina Ionescu, Kelsey Plum, Jewel Lloyd, Brianna Stewart. They are who they are. They're superstars. You're not going to take them off the team and put Caitlin Clark on there. Now, the last 2 on the bottom of the list are the ones that maybe if you were having an argument in good faith, I can see why you think that Caitlin Clark maybe would belong in one of their spots. Now, Alyssa Thomas, she doesn't necessarily stuff the stat sheet. Like, she doesn't have numbers that pop off the page or anything. But she is a vet, and she also is a forward. So the roster construction that they want, they can't replace her with Caitlin Clark, who is a smaller guard, you know. And then Chelsea Gray, she does play guard, and she is still dealing with a foot injury. She has played well in the past, but she is also a vet who has experience. And I don't know. She's still not back from her foot injury. Who knows if she'll be healthy enough to play in the Olympics? But at that point, it doesn't matter, right? You have an alternate. I think that Caitlin Clark is either the top or one of the top alternates to be selected for the team. So the only person that I'll hear is people say, like, oh, maybe, like, Chelsea Gray shouldn't be there. She's not exactly, like, fit for... She's not in, like, game shape yet, right? She hasn't gotten to play this full season and get herself acclimated to, like, full-speed games again. Yeah. The person that I was most shocked to not see on the roster is Arike Ogunbowale. She's averaging 26 points a game with the Dallas Wings. They are not like a great team, but I mean, she is like lights out. She's a really good player, and I thought that she was selected as an alternate. Reading some quotes from her, she said that she withdrew her name from consideration instead. She was not selected. She took her name out of the pot. This is a quote that I found from her. She said, "There's trials," she's talking about Olympic trials, "that happen throughout the year. You do it and you see the vibes. Me being me, I just felt the vibes. When it comes to that stuff, it really isn't about your game. It's about what fits with the team. I actually took my name out the pool. I knew I would not be on it." Then I think separately she says, "It's politics. I can't really speak to USA basketball in general, but when it comes to women's basketball, politics is always around it." and I can't disagree generally with that statement. I don't really know exactly what she's referring to. I don't have like inside information on that. Um, because you would think, I don't know, you would like if, who knows? I'm not going to try and attribute like meaning to that quote because I don't have any context for it. But yeah, certainly like people are upset that Caitlin Clark did not make this team. I don't know. Like I think that Caitlin Clark is going to be very good, and I think that she has moments, right? I think she scored 30 on sometime earlier this week. That was like a career high. Went crazy in that game, but she's not hitting the same numbers that a lot of these other women are on this team already. She hasn't ever been to the Olympics before. I don't know. This is not about like something I also saw was like this is you have like a moment to like showcase women's sports or whatever, and like this is the moment where the world's gonna be watching to watch Caitlin Clark. I don't know when she gets into the game with this lineup. Are you gonna watch? It's like are 10 million more people going to watch the U.S. women's basketball team because Caitlin Clark is sitting 12th on the bench as opposed to not being there at all? Is that gonna change viewership so much that like all of a sudden nobody hates the WNBA anymore and everybody loves women's sports and everybody who's in the comments saying that Caitlin Clark is literally the only good woman basketball player that's ever lived is going to say, you know what? These women actually are good at what they're doing professionally. I should give them their credit, give them their flowers. Thank you, Caitlin Clark, for showing us that women are people too. No, it's not going to make a difference, People just want to see... I don't want to speak to everyone, but I think people who are very vehemently Caitlin Clark fans are not particularly even interested in watching the games. I think that they just want to stick it to the WNBA, right? That's been my stance since day one. I think that they already have decided the women in the WNBA are the enemy because they're advocating for themselves. They're advocating for equal rights, civil rights, lots of different causes that go on in the WNBA are counter to the people that are aggressively pushing Caitlin Clark. There's the idea of like the great white savior that Caitlin Clark is. I don't really want to feed into that discussion, but that's kind of what it feels like sometimes. And I think that is just kind of like the center of all of it is that they just want to say like, not particularly even want to see Caitlin Clark succeed. It's just like, well, somebody's going to, because again, people already are. But like somebody's going to succeed. I want it to be someone who hasn't been in that position already advocating for themselves and who I think looks like what a professional basketball player should look like. And I don't think that's fair to Caitlin Clark or the rest of the league. So I think that this is the right call. Like the Olympic team, like USA Basketball doesn't care what a private organization like the WNBA is getting for ratings, right? Like I don't think that the US sends a ski team over. Like I don't think that they're sending their luge team to the Winter Olympics because they're going to bring in huge ratings for luge, I don't think that they're sending the fencing guys over to be like, you know what? This is going to grow fencing in America tenfold. No, I think that they're sending this team to play in the Olympics because they've been doing this since, I don't know, ancient Greece or whatever, So it's not about whatever you want to say is the reason why Caitlin Clark should just have the red carpet rolled out for her because she's the face of women's sports right now or whatever, I'm sorry. I just don't see it. I don't know why you would make a team decision like that. Sounds like you want her to have like a participation trophy. Not cool with me. I don't know. I just don't understand I guess I'm trying to understand it. So like if you vehemently think that Caitlin Clark should make this team, let me know. Sound off in the comments. Let me know what you think. But I just don't see who she can replace on this roster outside of maybe Chelsea Gray, who might not even end up going because she's still dealing with an injury. That might be USA Basketball's reasoning in the first place. Chelsea Gray's who we prefer to have, and so we'll name her to the roster. But also, we're perfectly fine with bringing Caitlin Clark as a number 12 on our bench, So, again, think it's fine that she did not make the team this year. I don't think anybody's saying we're holding the doors barred against Caitlin Clark because we don't like her because she's stealing our spotlight. I don't think she would see the court with this team. I'm just being honest. I don't think she could. I mean, like, is she gonna start over like Kelsey Plum? No. She gonna start over Jewel Lloyd? No. She gonna start over Sabrina? No. She gonna start over Jackie Young at this point? No. DT is probably gonna start over her at this point, and all of those guards are getting minutes before she does. So I don't know. Like, when is she gonna find meaningful time? Unless it is really just like a token spot to be like, oh, and here's Caitlin Clark, by the way, at the end of the game. I don't see it. If that's what you want, then I know that you don't want the game of women's basketball to be better. You just want this little figurehead to go out there and make some sort of statement about how she's better than everyone else. She has every chance to prove that. But she hasn't so far. And that's okay. It's fine. Like, I don't think that anyone is... I don't know. I think it's also out of pocket to be like, you know what, actually, she's terrible and she's never going to be good. But I think that, like, tonight, of all nights, just sort of showed that she's just not ready yet, and that's okay. It is just, like, for lack of a better word, it's just bad timing, Like, Jackie Young was the first overall pick 2-3 years... Oh, boy, maybe it was 2019. Feels like 2 or 3 years ago, but that is 5 years ago. Let me look up when she was drafted. But what I'm saying is, like, if Jackie Young had been drafted this year, she would not be part of this Olympic team. And yet it was 2019. Oh my goodness! In my head, I'm like, yeah, that was 2 or 3 years ago. Now that was a whole 5 years ago. So time marches on, but yeah, like, she didn't get off to like a super hot start in her NBA career, I don't think. WNBA career. So look, like, she just wasn't going to be like the woman on that Olympic team if she had been drafted this year, if the Olympics were the year that she got drafted. So it's just going to have to be the way it is, right? It's just bad timing. And I don't think anything speaks to that better than the fact that, like I said, all these women who were selected, Jackie Young, 34 points, DT, 22 points. I mean, like, Sabrina, Kelsey, Jewel, all three of those guards are just flat out better. But Caitlin Clark tonight, she had 7 points, 6 assists, 7 turnovers. She shot 3 of 11 from the field, including 1 of 6 from 3. That's just not Olympic levels. And she's just not consistent enough to play at that level. Like, USA basketball, on the women's side of it, is not in a position to change up what they're doing. Why would they? I think they've won like six gold medals in a row. They don't need to go out of their way and say, well, Caitlin Clark is obviously a generational talent, so she's going to be the first one. She's going to start every game in the Olympics. No, because Caitlin Clark is certainly the first player to get national recognition as a women's basketball player, at least on this broad of a scale. But that does not mean that she is better than the women that are already here who weren't getting the attention they deserve simply because they were women and they could be ignored for as long as, humanly possible until now. So look, no shade on Caitlin Clark. It's just like games like this, not good. And the most egregious thing, and I know that ESPN's stirring the pot for a reason. I'm going to take the bait for just a second, then I'll move on. But like Aaliyah Boston tonight tied her career high with 27. ESPN made a post about it. The leading infographic, like the first post on Instagram, like the first picture of the slide reel or whatever, is a picture of Aaliyah Boston's stat line and then a picture of her and Caitlin Clark. And it's like, it's not really a reason for Caitlin Clark to be in here. Normally, you post a picture of the player in the game, and yet she's just like, yeah, she's just celebrating with Caitlin Clark, and it's fine. But why does she need to be in the picture? Like Aaliyah Boston had a career night, and Caitlin Clark is in this picture because ESPN wants the engagement. So I don't know. ESPN is definitely benefiting from all this discourse, and that is what makes me like feel icky about it. But that's the basketball associations. We're gonna move on now to the NFL because we have some news. People behaving kind of badly over there. We'll start with the one that is not as funny to me, but is like kind of funny. So the Falcons, the Atlanta Falcons, have been found to be in violation of the league's anti-tampering policy. Basically, it's a set of rules that make sure that you can't just like call other people's players in the middle of the season and try and negotiate with them to join your team at a later date while they're under contract with another team, just so that they can have a set point when free agency starts, all the players' contracts run out at the beginning of the new league year, and then every team has equal opportunity to meet with those players and basically give them their pitch to try and win them over to sign with their team. You're not allowed to have contact with players or their agents during the regular season as long as they're still signed to a contract with a team. And there's also like a period of like legal tampering where you can speak to a player's agent exclusively or the player if they're represented by themselves for like 3 days before the new league year starts. Now the Falcons are in violation of that policy because apparently during his introductory press conference, Kirk Cousins, the man who was signed by the Falcons this offseason for 4-year, $200 million contract. Apparently, in his introductory press conference, he sort of indicated that he had spoken with the head athletic trainer for the Falcons prior to the new league year starting. So that kicked off an investigation into their signings this offseason. It was found that they had improper contact with Kirk Cousins, wide receiver Darnell Mooney, and linebacker Charlie Warner. Now, I think this is really funny because I personally don't think any of those players are worth getting a foot in the door first for. Like, I think that like if Kirk Cousins is around, you'll take him. I think that certainly if Darnell Mooney's around, we'll take him. If the Seahawks featured that signing, oh well, right? But they felt that it was important to get a head start on that. Not to mention the fact that like they tampered to get Kirk Cousins, and then they drafted Michael Penix Jr. anyway with their 8th overall pick. So I don't know what's going on there. But because of this, they're going to lose their 5th round pick in 2025. Their team was fined $250,000, which feels more ceremonial than anything. And then the GM, Terry Fontenot, was fined $50,000 as well. So nothing too serious. Like I think that like the 5th round pick loss is, I don't know, for a team that's built like they are right now, I don't know that they're like gonna be in a position where they need to be stockpiling draft capital. They feel like they're in like a win now position with Kirk Cousins. But who knows? They're also going to build for the future, mode with Michael Penix Jr. back there at quarterback. So I don't know. But yeah, it just seems like it was a pretty minor thing. I've seen a lot of people get upset online, especially Dolphins fans, because the Dolphins actually war docked a 1st round selection and a 3rd round selection for tampering not too long ago. Basically, they're saying, hey, well, like, look, they lost that 5th round pick and got fined like $250,000. We literally had like a franchise altering like penalty dropped on us for doing the same thing. And I just want to point out that it's not at all the same thing. So the Dolphins, they lost a 2023 1st round pick and a 2024 3rd round pick. Now, the difference there, why the disparity in punishments is so severe, is because in the Falcons case, at least to me, it seems like the head athletic trainer just kind of like spoke to Kirk Cousins too soon, like possibly even hours before the 4 p.m. deadline that was set for whatever day the new league year starts on. It didn't seem like it was anything nefarious. Again, I don't know why you go out of your way to be like, I need a tamper to get Darnell Mooney. Like, I think he has 1,000-yard season in his career. if that. I don't know why you would need to go out of your way to cheat to get Charlie Warner on your team. Right, these are not like the highest of high profile guys. And it wasn't like they were reaching out to them mid-season, just maybe a little bit before the deadline, or they were contacting the players directly when they should have been going through an agent or something like that. Still against the rules, and they were punished for it. But what the Dolphins did was very different. So back in, I think, 2019, something like that, like Brian Flores, ex-Dolphins defensive coordinator, maybe he was head coach. I think he was head coach. Basically, he was fired. And after he was fired, he came out and said that the owner, Stephen Ross of the Dolphins, came to him and basically urged him to lose games on purpose because he wanted to get the team a better draft pick. So he put that out there. Even though teams are free to make their teams as horrible as they want, and it's not technically illegal to tank, like metaphorically, like without like saying you're tanking. But to intentionally throw games is illegal, and so the NFL started to look into it. What they uncovered during the investigation, they didn't find anything about Stephen Ross telling Brian Flores to lose games on purpose. But what they did find is that they were up to a lot of tampering. So the Dolphins contacted Tom Brady on 2 separate occasions, 3 years apart. Once in 2019 when he was in his last season as a Patriot, and then again in 2022 before he retired for the first time as a Buccaneer. So already, like, you're going to go talk to Darnell Mooney a couple days early. Do what you want, man. Like, that's fine. You're going to talk to, like, the greatest quarterback to ever play the game 3 years, like, over the course of, like, 4 years. And the other part of it is they actually, like, had a specific proposal for him that he was given already. And that the owner, Stephen Ross, was regularly involved in these conversations, like, constantly. So this is not just like oh, hey, like, we'll have, like, I don't know. Devontae Parker is going to go up to Tom Brady at, like, a social event and be like, hey, you should come play for the Patriots or for the Dolphins. We're having a good time in Miami. No, it was like the owner of the franchise is like, here's exactly what we'll pay you. Here's exactly what you'll get if you agree to join our team next season. So clearly, malice of forethought, and then also, like, a lot of steps taken further to say, we're definitely planning on doing this, and we will have tampered if you are signing with us. So we don't care about any of the wrongdoing. We know what we're doing. We're very serious about it, and we plan on going through with it as long as we don't get caught. This is very serious allegations, like much more egregious than anything the Falcons did. But not just that, they also contacted Sean Payton in January of 2022, while he was still under contract with the Saints. So 2 separate high-profile individuals in the NFL. Sean Payton is a Super Bowl winning head coach, even though he's not doing too well in Denver now. But of course, we didn't know he was a bad guy. We did. But we didn't know he was a bad coach. We might have back then in 2022. So it's a big deal. But Stephen Ross himself was suspended 6 games and fined $1.5 million for this little stunt. So this was very serious and also, like, very hands-on by the ownership itself. It wasn't just a little bit of a mix-up in scheduling between when the athletic trainer should actually reach out to Kirk Cousins or not, you know? So, Dolphins fans, relax. You got what you deserved. Okay, and I'm sorry. That really does suck, like, when the owners do something that gets your team penalized, because it's like, what do I do, right? Because they're always going to be here, and this sucks. And, like, they don't care if they lose their first-round pick. Who cares? They're still going to make money. And now the team that I like just sucks a little bit bad, like, a little bit more. So I get it, but Falcons, not anywhere near that level, right? There are levels to this. Not anywhere near the Dolphins' level of tampering. So that's why the punishment was so much less severe than the Dolphins. But speaking of drama, last thing we'll talk about today, Aaron Rodgers clearly can't help himself. He's in the news cycle again for being a bad teammate on the Jets. He is not attending this mandatory minicamp that the Jets are holding. So, off-season programs for the NFL, you have stuff that's, like, optional in the beginning, And then as you get closer to the preseason, you have like mini camps, and then like training camp itself starts properly. The preseason starts, then we get to the regular season. He was at I think he was at all of the optional training activities early in the summer, or I guess spring, right? Um, but now that the events are mandatory, so this mini camp is mandatory, he's nowhere to be found. Robert Salah's notified him, like he's aware that he's going to be fined for this because he has an unexcused absence. I think he said, let's see, so this is an interview, or this is a response from Robert Salah in response to like if Aaron Rodgers knew that this was going to be an unexcused absence that he would have to pay a fine for, which if he misses all 3 days of the camp, I think it's over $100,000. Nothing to Aaron Rodgers, but still, like, obviously shows that it's not really okay. But this is what Robert Saleh had to say. He said, I talked about it yesterday, but Aaron and I are on the exact same page. There is no issue between Aaron or his teammates for that matter. So like I said, we addressed it yesterday. It's more of an issue for everyone outside the building than it is inside, and that's about it. Now, I don't know if you can really say that because you are fining him, right? Like if he this sounds like you're excusing his absence, but his absence is unexcused. So, which one is it? You know, like, I don't know. I just don't understand how you can just be like, yeah, you know what? We're on the exact same page. I think he should mandatorily come to this mini camp. He thinks he should go on vacation. I think he said there was like something that was a very special moment for him or something like that. Like there was something special he had to attend to, and that's why he's not at mini camp. Something else I thought was interesting. Saleh reiterated that Rodgers had made the team aware of his plans in advance, but backup quarterback Tyrod Taylor said Tuesday he only learned he would be leading the starting offense earlier that morning. So that means that neither Rodgers or the Jets told Tyrod that he was going to be absent that day. So again, seems to disagree. Like doesn't seem to align with what Robert Saleh is saying about how he knew about it, he was aware of it, and it's not a big deal. It seems like he just kind of like wasn't there when people were expecting him to be, obviously, because it's mandatory minicamp, and why wouldn't he be? Now, according to an article in The Athletic, he's on an overseas vacation. So it's not like a medical emergency. It's not like a family emergency. He just had like a trip that he planned months in advance. And then he just didn't want to reschedule it or cancel it. So he just missed mandatory minicamp to do it. Which is strange, right? Because this is your job. And I guess you can take PTO from a regular job, but you've also been off, like, flirting with a vice president, like, candidacy with RFK Jr. So clearly you've had a lot of free time in the off season to do what you need to do, or do what you want to do even. Especially after this quote from him in January. He said, if you want to be a winning organization and put yourself in position to win championships and be competitive, everything that you do matters. All the bullshit that has nothing to do with winning needs to get out of the building. So that'll be the focus moving forward. So I don't know if he was referring to himself when he said all the stuff that has nothing to do with winning needs to get out of the building, and that's why he's overseas right now. But yeah, very crazy quote to have out there. You know you said that with your whole chest, and then to be like, yeah, and because I said that, and I think it's very consistent with my character, I will not be attending mandatory minicamp because I don't know what like playbook install has to do with winning. Like I don't know what like the first mandatory organized activities that a team has in a year. I don't know what that has to do with winning. So I'm gonna be in Turks and Caicos. Because I think that would probably be better for me. And I won't elaborate on that. And also, you have to tell people that you're actually cool with me doing this, okay? Or I'm going to be pissed. So, Robert, when you take that podium, you better say, it's all cool that I'm here. And don't tell them where I am. So, I don't know. Aaron Rodgers, he's a weird guy. I don't think he's a good person, and I think that he has turned like the New York Jets into a clown show. Like I think that he spent all of last season pretending like he was going to become like the first man ever to return from Achilles surgery in like the span of one season. Kept them in limbo the whole time, kind of like trying to like stave off making a move for another quarterback because they were waiting for him to come back, like hovering around 500 to try and make a run for the playoffs, teasing them by coming back to practice, being activated in week 14, and then never ending up playing. Just a bunch of, I don't know. I think he's just all about the headlines these days. And that is sad to me because he is the Kyrie of the NFL. People will say he's the most talented quarterback that's ever played. That just means that this guy did some really flashy things and he won one Super Bowl and that's all he has to show for it. So you can't say he's the best. You can't say he is the greatest. You just have to say he's very talented though. He had a lot of potential, I guess. Anyways, I don't know what to tell you. Like, it doesn't really mean anything. Like, okay, he may have been one of the most talented, but he's 41 now. So I don't know what he's doing. If he doesn't like the game, I think he was like, I don't know if he was seriously considering like a vice presidency, like a vice president candidacy with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. this year, but like he was entertaining that, at least in the headlines. Maybe again, just to have his name in the headlines. I think if that's what you want, you can just like be a guest on the Joe Rogan podcast every other week and then stop like torturing the fans of New York so they don't have to come to your defense on social media every single day. Especially like the guys on the team have to answer questions about it every time they're in a presser. Like, I don't know how this can possibly align with the fact that like you have to like put yourself in a position to win championships by getting everything that doesn't have to do with winning out of the building. I think that if they moved on from you, Aaron Rodgers, that might be where they would be. But they've also like put all their eggs in this basket. So I don't know. We'll see if the Jets can do anything. The NFL has also put all their eggs in this basket because the Jets have 6 primetime games before week 11. I guess they didn't learn their lesson from last year because that's pretty much the same thing they did last year, and we had to watch Zach Wilson and Tim Boyle go out there and Trevor Siemian play quarterback, and it was horrible. So I don't know. Aaron Rodgers is a weirdo. Go to work, man. I gotta go to work. Go to work. That's all I got to say to you. But yeah, thank you so much for stopping by. That'll do it for me this week. Hopefully this is a better solo pod. I felt like it was moving a little bit, but let me know if you thought it was horrible. If you're over on YouTube, shout out. We're getting some attention on YouTube. If you guys didn't know, we're on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Prime, or Amazon Music. I don't know, whatever it is. We're everywhere you get your podcasts. We're on TikTok and Instagram at ANEOKD. Follow us everywhere. Right now we got a bunch of people spread out across a bunch of different platforms. So we want to be able to like connect with y'all in a couple centralized spaces. So check us out. Follow us on all platforms, maybe. Even just do that. If you have this open on YouTube right now, hop over to Spotify, play the whole thing again. Maybe. I don't know. And then, rate 5 stars on Spotify. Like, comment, subscribe on YouTube. I don't know. Do whatever you can do to positively interact with the post on other podcast playing services. I don't know. But I've been Aaron Trevino. My wife, Ellie Trevino, is not here right now. She's at the hospital again. She's doing a shift, but she should be back next week. And, by then I think the NBA Finals will probably be over. The NHL playoffs will probably be over. We'll be gearing up for WNBA, the meat of the season, and then it's on to the Olympics. So, exciting summer this year. We don't just have to sit back and watch baseball all year, which is good. But thank you so much for stopping by today. We'll catch you guys next time.